A dusty tail light, a 5-minute fix, no charge, just kindness. Months later, the woman who gave without expecting anything hears engines roar outside her shop. Not one, but a fleet. The man she helped, a transport company owner, and he did not forget. What started as a quiet act of decency becomes the spark that transforms her life forever. This is the story of how a mechanic lit up her own future. Hit like and comment where you're watching from. Your support brings more amazing stories. Now let's begin. The dusty Arizona sun was dipping low behind the distant red rock mesas, casting a golden haze over the weathered signs and cracked asphalt of the roadside. Na wiped her hands on a rag, eyes scanning the horizon from her uncle's old mechanic garage. The place was rough around the edges, faded paint, a squeaky gate, and an uneven dirt lot. But it was hers to keep alive. Since her uncle's stroke, she had been the one behind the tools, the one making sure every engine roared back to life. It wasn't easy. Bills piled up, paperwork waited on her desk like silent threats, and the dream of turning the garage into a licensed woman-owned business seemed further away every day. She had stayed late, poring over yet another email from the city offices. One missing signature here, one unpaid fee there, a knot twisted in her stomach. Taking a day off to get things notarized wasn't simple. Between clients, car troubles, and the relentless Arizona heat, every minute counted. Suddenly, the rumble of a heavy engine broke the quiet. Na looked up to see a beat-up Peterbilt truck lumbering onto the lot, dust trailing behind it. The driver stepped down, an older man, early 60s, weathered but polite, with tired eyes that spoke of long highways and harder miles. "Tail lights out," he said simply. Na nodded and moved toward the back of the truck. She pulled out a replacement bulb from her modest stock and checked the wiring. When she mentioned the part cost, his hesitation was clear. Money was tight. Without thinking twice, she smiled. "Honestly, just the light. No labor charge." The man blinked, surprised. "You sure?" "Yeah, we all break down sometimes." He handed over the money for the part and left without a fuss, no tips, no promises, just a quiet thank you that lingered in the air longer than the engine's roar. Na watched him disappear down the road, the warm Arizona dusk settling around her garage. It was a small act, but in a place where everyone was just trying to get by, it was everything. Weeks slipped by in a blur of grease-stained overalls, engine roars, and the steady hum of life at the garage. Na's days blended together, each filled with patching up old sedans, tuning engines, and managing the slow crawl of bills that never seemed to stop arriving. She barely had time to think about the man with the broken tail light. Walt, she had decided to call him in her mind. The city's endless bureaucracy, however, was always at the back of her mind. The business license, the notarized papers, the registration fees. It was a mountain she couldn't climb while juggling every leaking pipe and sputtering carburetor. Every time she opened an email from the city, the same message stared back at her. Incomplete application, missing signatures, unpaid fees. It was a frustrating dance she couldn't break free from, and the dream of transforming the old family garage into a proper woman-owned repair shop felt just out of reach. One afternoon, after a morning full of tire changes and oil swaps, Na stepped out for a quick lunch. The heat was brutal, even in the shade. She grabbed a sandwich from the corner store, her mind swirling with everything she needed to do. She had to find time to get those papers notarized. But how? Taking a day off could mean losing business, and the fees, money was tight, every dollar already accounted for. When she returned, wiping sweat from her brow, something caught her eye. A manila envelope was taped carefully to the weathered garage door. A sticky note fluttered slightly in the dry breeze, written in neat handwriting. "For Nina, you lit up more than a tail light that day." Her heart skipped, hands trembling slightly. She peeled the envelope open. Inside were the documents she had been chasing for months. A paid business license application, notarized papers, a voucher for a new signage grant, and most astonishing, a stamped LLC certificate with her name printed clearly. Tucked beneath the papers was a folded photograph. Na unfolded it gently. It showed Walt standing proudly beside a younger man in a suit, his son, a lawyer. Her breath caught. She had no idea the man who had stopped by months ago was more than a driver. Walt ran a fleet company based in Nevada and had once been a mechanic like her. Someone who knew what it meant to struggle, to keep the dream alive against all odds. Na smiled softly to herself, the weight on her chest lifting just a little. The days that followed brought a new kind of energy to Na's garage. The weight of the business license in her hands felt like a key turning in a long locked door. For years she had kept the shop running with sheer grit and hope. But now, with the official papers and the signage grant secured, a real future stretched before her. She spent the mornings drafting plans for a new sign, bold letters that would finally declare the garage as Na's Repairs, woman-owned, no BS. It was more than a slogan. It was a statement of resilience, a beacon for anyone who doubted what a woman could build on this dusty stretch of highway. But with opportunity came new challenges. Orders for parts had to be formalized. Insurance policies, tax documents, and customer contracts demanded attention. Na found herself learning the language of business, words she hadn't used since school days, now vital to her survival. Then came the unexpected call. Her phone buzzed while she was under the hood of a classic Chevy pickup. The voice on the other end was clear and steady, a logistics manager from Nevada. They had heard about the newly licensed shop and wanted to set up an account for their fleet. Repairs. Walt and Sons Transport, the manager said. We've been hearing good things. Walt spoke highly of you. Na's heart raced. The very man who had shown kindness months ago was now sending a stream of new clients her way. It wasn't just business. It was a circle closing, a promise fulfilled. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the desert sky flamed with color, Na stood beneath her new sign. The garage looked different now, proud, official, a dream made real. She thought back to that late afternoon when she had fixed Walt's tail light for free. A simple act of kindness, a small choice made in a moment of quiet generosity. Sometimes she realized it was those small moments that built bridges to futures you never imagined. And now, under the vast Arizona sky, Na's future was shining brighter than ever. Business at Na's garage began to change in ways she had only dreamed about. The steady trickle of customers grew into a consistent flow. Thanks to the new accounts coming in from Nevada and nearby towns, the once quiet, dusty lot now hummed with activity. Trucks lined up for repairs, and the smell of oil and rubber mixed with the warm desert breeze. Na was busier than ever, but her heart felt lighter. Each day brought new challenges, but also a sense of pride that no amount of sweat or late nights could overshadow. The little sign she'd put up was more than words painted on metal. It was a symbol of everything she'd fought for in the future she was building. One afternoon, Walt himself showed up driving a gleaming semi-truck, polished and proud. He climbed down, his graying hair catching the sunlight, and smiled warmly at Nina. I wanted to see the place for myself, he said, his voice steady but filled with something like gratitude. Na wiped her hands on her rag and shook his hand firmly. You're welcome anytime, Walt. He glanced around the garage, nodding approvingly. You reminded me why I started this business. Not just to haul freight, but to help folks like you who believe in hard work and kindness. They stood together, the quiet hum of the shop around them. Walt handed Na a small wrapped package. Inside was a keychain shaped like a semi-truck engraved with the words, "For the woman who fixed my tail light and lit a path." It was more than a gift. It was a reminder that small acts of kindness can create ripples, reaching further than one could ever see. Na's smile was wide and real. Her dream was no longer just hers. It was part of a community built on trust, respect, and unexpected generosity. As the sun dipped behind the mesas once more, she looked out over her lot, a place transformed by determination and heart, and she knew with certainty that this was only the beginning. Months had passed since the day Walt first pulled into Nina's dusty lot with a broken tail light. What had started as a simple gesture of kindness had blossomed into something far greater than either of them could have imagined. Na's garage was no longer just a stop for roadside repairs. It had become a trusted hub for truckers and local drivers alike. Her reputation as a skilled mechanic and a woman who could be counted on spread beyond the red rock horizons of Arizona. One chilly morning, a convoy of big rigs rolled onto the lot, engines rumbling with purpose. The trucks gleamed under the rising sun, polished and proud, bearing the familiar name, Walt and Sons Transport. Na stepped out from the garage, wiping her hands on a rag. Heart that would last. Sometimes a simple choice to help someone in need becomes the bridge to your own future. Na's small act of fixing a tail light without asking for labor had sparked a chain of generosity that transformed her life and hers alone.
That would last. Sometimes a simple choice to help someone in need becomes the bridge to your own future. Na's small act of fixing a tail light without asking for labor had sparked a chain of generosity that transformed her life and hers alone.